Well, it sounds like you were just telling me you had you weren't there, but it sounds like you had an exciting morning with a tree falling down in your yard.
Yeah, I got a phone call from my next door neighbor. He said that everything's okay, but I just want you to know the great big tree out in front of your house. We have a windstorm come through and it blew over and it missed your front yard light and missed the house and everything. So waiting for my wife to get home to send me pictures.
Report on the damage.
Yeah, we were driving up here from Boise, so we'll see what it looks like.
Are you going to tell her to have it cleaned up by the time you get home tomorrow?
I know, right? I hope so.
Sounds like a big-ass tree.
Yeah, it's probably a 80-foot tall silver.
Say maple?
Yep, silver maple.
Yeah. You probably find a knife maker that will come want to chop it up for knife handles.
Either that or somebody wants to come make some slabs out of it.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'd like to make some slabs out of it. It's probably a 100-year-old tree.
Yeah, probably make a cool table out of it or something.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool. I've been, bugging you here and there about like you got to make it up and come do this because I always tell people about you that you were the very literally the first person that I met really in this industry when we decided to actually try to make this a knife company. And I always tell people that you were that guy that it's just kind of amazing how life works, how lucky you can be, because like Jess and I just randomly rode the chairlift up at Total Archery Challenge back in 2020. That was COVID.
Yep.
We didn't know a soul there, and we rode the chairlift up to the top. And you hear that?
I'm getting pictures.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, it's vibrating on your phone. I was like, is that my mic backfeeding? Rode that chairlift up to the top, and it was, we could have randomly run into anybody. Could have just been some, framing contractor from Bozeman or whatever. Yep. But we walked up, and it happened to be you and Jessica Byers, Rihanna and Amanda.
Yep.
And I think Zach from Loophole.
Yep.
And you were kind enough to tell us to shoot with us. And I can't tell you how much I've appreciated that from the start because, you guys were like the first ones we were able to kind of develop a little bit of a relationship with. And you in particular that day and Jess Byers too were just so kind to us.
Yeah. And you kind of reflect the people that you're around too. So you and Jess were like normal, regular people, just like everybody else. So
yeah,
it was easy to have you join and shoot and critique my shooting. And
yeah, right. I definitely wasn't doing that. Actually, if I remember, you outshot the shit out of all of us. But it was really cool because you guys were all industry people. We weren't. And, we were kind of honing in on your crowd. And it's like when you don't really know somebody, you never know what they're all about. And, you were humble enough and nice enough to let us shoot. And it's just from there, we became friends. And then I swear every time I see you, it just makes me happier in hell to see you and give you a hug. And
definitely.
And what I didn't know is that when we were shooting along with you, I was kind of shooting with a legend of the industry. You're everybody loves you, and you had the mohawk going.
I did that year.
Yeah,
the COVID mohawk.
The COVID mohawk, yeah. But it was just really, really cool how you guys accepted us. So I really publicly want to say thank you for that. And then, the people you introduced us to down at base camp. And then what we ended up finding is just how small this industry is and how kind people are throughout the entire thing. It's just, it's a cool community.
And all of the tacks are just kind of a melting pot. And it's the best of the industry going there, and everybody can talk to everybody. We're literally just there to help everybody out. Mm-hmm. And Sean DeGray loves having those kind of people there, and it kind of makes it easier for him to do what he does, and everybody steps up, and it's a very good crowd.
It is, and it definitely feels different than like the other shows, like the shows January, February timeframe. I mean, a lot of the same people are there, but there's so many more people. You're more spread out. Those TAC events, it's more of a hunting camp kind of feel, like, because, you know, even at the big ones, you're not that far apart from each other.
No. And the standard trade shows, everybody's kind of locked to their booths, so they're not out walking around. And I mean, everybody's there, but nobody sees each other because they're always at their booth. But
well, and with TAC, you can get away like early in the morning, maybe go shoot together before the day gets too busy.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
We finally got to shoot together last year.
I know.
Again.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. Well, how did you end up? How did you end up a part of this industry? Because you're not really in it from the standpoint of like you making your business through it, or, you know, part of a brand per se. You know, like how did you end up kind of so tight knit with the industry and loved by, frankly, everybody I see? Just gives you huge hugs, you know.
Yeah. So the business that I work with, a big semiconductor manufacturer, Corey Jacobson was working there with me, and we were in the same department. And one year his area was on fire, and I sent him into a spot that I had hunted for the previous 16 years. I wasn't successful with my bow for 16 years when I was elk hunting.
So that's why you gave him that spot.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd shot elk in there with a rifle, but never with my bow. And I send Corey in there, and by 10 o'clock that morning, he texts me and says, "Bull down." I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
And so we've been hunting together since then, and that's been, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago at least.
Yeah.
And started Elk 101, and I don't want to be part of the industry to make a living out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just there to do anything to help Corey out with Elk 101, and to be the regular guy that everybody that isn't in the industry that's going out and trying to shoot an elk every year. And that's the whole premise of Elk 101, is like Math 101, English 101.
Yeah.
And kind of teaching people, showing them all the mistakes that we've made and learned from, and how to be able to get out in the field and harvest an animal.
So I was going to ask you how the Elk 101 got going. What was the kind of impetus of that?
It originally started out, Corey was going to be doing a seminar at a Cabela's, and we were charging like $20 a person to come to the seminar.
Yeah.
And Cabela's couldn't take money for the people to attend the seminar. So you had to put up a web page to literally just take the transaction for people to pay for.
Okay.
So set that up, and then it was like, okay, what do we name it?
Yeah.
We threw all kinds of names out and about, and Elk 101 landed just because of it's just elk hunting education, basically.
Yeah. So what kind of happened after that? How did it start to? Did you start doing more of the seminar stuff, or how did it end up kind of really growing into what it is now?
The seminar stuff, and then we always loved filming our hunts.
Yeah.
So we were putting films out and doing the full draw film tour, and putting our films out through that, and then pretty much just elevated every year. Everybody wanted to keep seeing us suffer through elk season.
Yeah.
And then Corey started the Extreme Elk magazine, and it took off and got so big that it was more than he could handle maintaining and producing, and wound up selling it off and just kept on focusing on the Elk 101. And
yeah.
So we had a store on there where all of the gear that we used and believed in, we had a store, and we would have everything that we used was for sale on the store. So only stuff that we tried and trued and tested and believed in.
Yeah, and it's like, and I want to clarify for people, when I said you're not really like in the industry, you know, obviously you are with Elk 101 and everything you've done, but what I meant by that is like, you're not, you know, part of a call company necessarily, or you're knife
Correct.
company like we are, or Yeti, or,
Yep.
you know, a camo company, or you have a day job.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I, you know, I've talked to you about that a little bit, about how you know, you've even offered to come work in a booth or something, and I've said, oh, we would pay you to do that or whatever, and you just are like adamant about refusing to accept money from people. What's your thought process behind that?
If it is products that I believe in and that I want to use, I'm kind of representing your brand and I believe in it. And so it's easy when you believe in something to represent it and tell people that are coming to a trade show or a booth about what you like about it.
Sure.
And it's just kind of, you're part of a company and you're just promoting them to,
sure,
you know, the raising tide raises all ships. So
yeah,
just kind of elevate brands.
Yeah, it's been cool to watch you do that. There's a few people in the industry that I, you know, really respect and see do a lot of really cool things. And you're always seem like you're that guy that's like, you're not the me guy or the out front. But you're always talking somebody up or just genuinely kind about different people and the brands. And I know from the very, very beginning with us, you know, it was huge to have somebody like you, is not just at that tack, but then even after, whether you were buying a knife or just talking about us to somebody, and frankly, just the encouragement, you know, like early on when, you know, where we were at trying to kind of break in, you definitely kind of feel like the redheaded stepchild because you don't know how to fit and you don't know a lot of people, and trying to be authentic and not burn any bridges. But also, you know, it's hard because you don't know, you know, who's friends with who in the industry and who should you work with and who should you watch out for. And there's just little things that, like, it's nice to have somebody early on to offer a little bit of advice, you know, and also hopefully trust that if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, that somebody might say like, hey, on the down low here, you might want to not do that, or, you know, just be careful or cautious of this or that.
Yeah. And that's, over the years, there's just been people that show up at Attack with a backpack full of this gear that they kind of want to sell or they want to show you. And, you know, if it's something that is a game changer or something that's unique that would be a hit or could be utilized, it's easy to take them around and make connections. And that's kind of the biggest thing that I enjoy at the tax is seeing somebody that has a new table, they're set up at a MKC or a TAC event, and they just have a table there, and you go and talk to them. Yeah. And let me go and introduce you to this person or to that person.
Sure. So networking is such I'd probably say it's the most critical part. You know, I mean, you know, just getting to know people and also supporting them, but like, I think across so many different businesses, the networking part is so key. Yeah. You know, to get to know people and gain some trust and get some help and work with people. It's been, and I say that's why I do this podcast. I mean, we don't advertise, we don't monetize it. I mean, there's nothing. I do this podcast just because I love. My favorite part of this industry is the people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it really is. It's you know, people have said like, oh, are you going to grow this company and sell it or whatever? And it's like, well, then I wouldn't be a part of the industry. I wouldn't get to go to TAC or shows. And, you know, it's fun to be in this and do this as a living, especially when I was a lineman and a knife maker before that, and just a fan of the industry and a fan of a lot of these companies, whether it was a Sitka or, you know, Yeti or whoever. Yeah. It's cool to get to know the people behind the brands.
Yeah, and there's so many brands, and there's so many brands that have come and gone because maybe they weren't approachable, or it was their way or the highway, or they did shady things one way or another, and the word gets around quick. If you're decent or if you're not decent.
We talk to our team a lot about that. I mean, this is the first year we've sent our TAC team out without me or Brandon.
Yep.
And it's kind of a big leap of faith, but I feel like the employees that we're sending have earned that trust with us, that it's also beneficial to us, and we can't be everywhere.
Yeah.
You just can't be everywhere. And I feel like we have such good people that work for us that I also want to highlight them and let them go talk about our brand. And it's so cool when you get messages. We've been getting them here in the last few weeks with tax being kicked off again. Just about like our people in our booth, when people come home and they'll send us a message, and we haven't had a negative one yet. I wouldn't expect it, but we do talk downstairs a ton to our team about, like, you're representing us, you're representing yourself in the industry. And a lot of you are new in this, and you might think like, oh, Yeti or Sika or, Kuyu or Kafaru, you see big brands and you think they're huge. But I said, actually, just regular people behind these brands, and they're all watching and they're all looking out. And I said, if you mess up or you do something you shouldn't, like, we're going to hear about it. It's like a small town.
Yeah,
no, it really
100%.
is. Word travels. And so we explain to them, whether it's their own personal reputations or ours as a company, how important it is to do the right thing, because the word travels.
Yeah, you have been, and I listen to all the podcasts,
mm-hmm.
and everybody that I've dealt with, talked to at shows or any form, they're all a direct reflection of you and Jess. And
yeah.
You can tell that the people that you want representing you are people that you're going to open up your door to at night and,
yep.
Hey, come stay the night.
Right.
Zero trust issues and 100% faith in not only are they going to help you build your company, but you have the pride and ownership of saying, you know what, 10 years down the road, you may not be working for me, but
right.
You're developing people for
right.
the future.
Yep. No, I'm really proud of that. I'm sure somebody that is working for us down the road, will be somewhere else in the industry and maybe a big name, maybe have a big podcast or a big YouTube channel, or they might start their own company or brand or whatever. I would be super proud of that.
Oh, yeah.
And it is like sending our people on these shows and these TACs. They're a lot of work, as you know, but also it is a reward. Like, to know that they have our trust enough to send them out there, and also they get to go. I mean, let's face it, they get paid to go to a Total Archery Challenge.
Exactly.
Like, it's a good gig, even though like people do. I always tell people in the shop that haven't gone or aren't going, don't get too jealous, because those TACs will wear your ass out too. Yeah. I mean, man, it can be long days. And like this week, I just talked to Brett Benton this morning, who's just a rock star for us. But he said day 2 in a row, just pouring ass rain on him down in Georgia.
I saw that. I saw some of the videos, and it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been I think our best selling product in these last 3 TACs have been rain jackets.
Your jacket? Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't really necessarily foresee those being such a hit, but when people have traveled a long ways to a TAC event, all of a sudden it's pouring ass rain. Yep. They come in kind of handy.
It's a necessity.
Where were you born and raised? Where'd you grow up?
So I always tell people, don't judge me, but I was born in California.
Oh, geez. I mean, if I'd have known.
I couldn't stand it, and I moved away when I was like 2 years old.
Yeah. Packed your bags and left?
No, my dad didn't want to raise me in that environment. It was 1970.
Were you in Southern Cal?
Bay Area.
Okay.
And moved to Ely, Nevada, which is the most isolated town in the continental U.S.
Really?
And there's 3,000-ish people there, 2,000 to 3,000 depending on.
Is that the part of Nevada that's just surrounded by sagebrush?
It's a high valley, so it's at 7,800 feet.
Oh, wow.
Or 6,800 feet. And then just outside of it, there's peaks that are 10,000 feet. So
I know, like driving down to Reno, you go through like Elko, and then it feels like you drive through sagebrush for like 6 more hours.
It's similar to that, but it's just one of the big valleys with mountains on both sides. But yeah, I grew up there, went to high school, graduated from there, and then.
Did you play sports, or what'd you do in high school? What were you into?
I did Little League and stuff, but then I was hunting every night after school, shooting rabbits and anything that I could shoot.
Now, tell me about this. Actually jogged my memory. I hadn't even thought of this before right now, but you have, and I'm trying to remember what it was, about a really cool car that you had redone with your dad, right? Back when you were a kid, and you still have it?
Yeah.
Tell me about that, because what is it?
1950 Willys Jeepster.
Okay.
And
yes.
So I was 12 years old when I was 11. Our family vehicle, a 78 Blazer, got rolled and totaled. And the body was mangled, but the frame was still straight on it. So Dad kept it, and I was turning 14, and it's like, okay, you're going to need a vehicle, and we just need to, you can make something out of this and be able to have it to drive.
Mm-hmm.
And so the search was on. I was riding motorcycles every night and going 20, 30 miles from home at 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
And
just looking for a car?
No, just out.
Or just messing around?
Just shooting rabbits. Or just tooling around on motorcycles. Yeah. And found this Jeepster that had been driven off of one of the embankments on a backcountry road. And it was 100 yards down in the bottom of a ravine. And I knew the wheelbase, so I'd like measure off the wheelbase of every vehicle I seen to see what would fit on that Blazer chassis, and that Jeep matched. So
at 12 years old, you're thinking this way. That's not normal these days.
That and that it had been sitting there since early 50s.
Really?
So it was just an abandoned vehicle that was just sitting there, just wasting away.
Yeah.
So my dad was the manager of the propane plant, so he was the Hank Hill of Ely, Nevada.
Yeah.
And he had a boom truck that we used to pick up the propane tanks, and went out, put the boom out, pulled it up out of the ravine. And
what'd your dad say? Was he like, oh, this will work? Or?
Oh, yeah, he was excited about it.
Yeah.
Took it home and unbolted the body, and literally the two of us could lift the body off of it and put it on the Blazer frame. And so welded body mounts, and it's a backyard build.
Yeah.
And it's held together all this time. So did all the body work, sanded it and over and over and over, welded and filled all the holes in it. And in my high school auto body class, was able to do all the engine work on it, or in my mechanics class, my auto shop class, work on the engine. And then in the auto body class, was able to paint. I've painted it my senior year of high school. So I've been working with a auto body guy that did paint.
Yeah.
One of my dad's friends had a paint shop, and okay, we can paint it.
Yeah.
And it's sat like that since my senior year of high school. And it's a little bit different. You don't see any of them around.
Yeah, because it's completely custom.
Yeah. But yeah, I was never made to be a four-wheel drive. They were all two-wheel drive vehicle to begin with. Mm-hmm. And there was around 6,600 of them made.
Did you drive it much after high school?
I drove it from Ely to Boise.
Yeah.
Twice, to and from, because after I graduated college, I moved to Denver for 6 months.
Okay.
Couldn't stand it and moved back to Boise.
Yeah.
So, but now I just drive it mostly in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go and do some snow runs in the winter with it, and go do parades and car shows, but I use it and go out and do exhibition rock crawls and things. And
that's cool.
It gets beat up. It's not a pavement princess.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where'd you go to college?
In Boise, I went to trade school, IT Technical Institute.
Oh.
Back when it was around for CAD, mechanical design stuff.
Okay.
So
why did you choose that? What was your plan at that time?
It was the class during high school, CAD was kind of just coming out, computer-aided drafting.
Yeah.
And I took...
I was going to say, did they even have computers clear back then?
There was a lot of drafting part. And then the CAD was coming out, and we received the CAD program, and nobody knew how to use it. Teacher didn't know how to use it.
Yeah.
So me and one other kid kind of took it and figured out how to use it, and semi-developed a class on how to use it. And
you became the professor in college, basically.
Oh, that was in high school.
Oh, that was still back in high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my high school advisor said, "Oh, you should go and do this."
Yeah.
And so I went and did that for school, and that's just what's kind of stuck.
Well, that was a 2-year college?
2-year, yeah. So I have an associate's in computer design.
Okay. And then what was your first job out of college? And you said you went to Denver?
Went to Denver doing, what was I doing? I was doing all of the underground water, sewer, power for Orange County in California.
Like the design?
Yeah, all of the routes where everything went.
Holy shit. Wow.
But Denver was a big city way back then. That was in 1990.
Yeah.
And it was just too big, so moved back to Boise and got the job where I'm at now, and I've been there for just over 33 years.
Yeah. So what was your first role with this company you're at now?
Back then, they did not hire anybody for any high positions.
Yeah.
Everybody had to start out as an operator. So I worked for 2 years in the fab running the machines that were making the wafers that they make the computer chips out of.
Running like the CNC machines?
No, these were dry etch machines. So literally making the computer chips.
Oh, okay.
So it was just production all done on the machine, but 24-hour deal. So I was working nights for 2 years, and then got an opening in the drafting and design department, and then moved into that, and I've been doing that pretty much since.
Really?
Yeah.
How has computers and technology changed since, like, you got your current role to how you work with it today?
Oh, it 100% changed. I mean, some of that first stuff when I was in Colorado, you were doing it by hand on D-size Mylar sheets of paper. And laying everything out. And now, literally, you can take anything. You can take a knife. You can have no plan on what you're doing, and 30 minutes later, you could have something that you could actually pop out, send it to the CNC, and cut it out. And literally from nothing but an idea in your head, an hour later, you can have a piece of metal in your hand. That
what kind of programs do you run then? Is it
SolidWorks? Memory.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want a job? You want to move to Montana?
Yeah, not yet. I don't know.
They use SolidWorks down here, and oh God, I'm blanking on the other program. Couple programs. Not Mastercam, but Fusion 360.
Fusion 360.
Yeah. But I think mostly SolidWorks.
Yep.
It's pretty amazing watching those guys. Like you say, you can send them anything, or Dylan will need a pen holder for his desk, and he'll design one real quick and then 3D print it Those 3D printers are bonkers.
It's 100% bonkers. I mean, you can make something like that and it costs you $3 to make.
Yeah.
You know, something that's kind of critical on certain different designs. And for manufacturing, like for gun manufacturing and such now, all of your butt stocks and everything like that, before they go to production and get mass quantities built.
Yeah.
They can 3D print a dozen of them and, okay, need a change here, need a change there. And instead of having to make a mold, $10,000 mold.
Yeah, I got a quote on a mold for sheaths if we wanted to mold them. I just was curious, like injection molding. Just the tooling for one sheath was $77,000.
Yep, 100%.
And so what if it's not right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can 3D print it. Okay, I need to shave off here, shave off there.
Yep.
Go back to the computer program, and it's now where you want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, we're 3D printing every new knife model 10 times.
Yep.
You know, at least then if it's close, we can then run parts and pieces and start to really, you know, because you don't really get like a feel for weight and stuff like that with a 3D printing with plastic. But, God, it's amazing to just run a quick 3D printing and be like, are we even close here? Or do I like this handle, or are we too long, too short, too fat? It's just amazing.
And wasting a sheet of metal.
Yep.
And okay, this didn't work. And
yeah. Well, I would custom make, and I still do this a little bit, but I would custom make like the Blackfoot knife that we launched with. I have them over in my other shop. There's probably a dozen of them laying around that are literally custom made knives, but each one of those would take a couple days for me to make one.
Yeah.
And then I'd make changes, and now we can 3D print something in half hour. It's crazy. Yep. You know, we can talk about it, and by noon there's a 3D printing. And you can also now 3D print metal. I mean, Brandon has one on his desk. It's just kind of a novelty, but this guy, we don't have one, but this guy 3D printed us handle scales for a Blackfoot out of copper.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's heavy as a boat anchor, but it's bonkers. It melts metal and puts metal where it wants it. It's crazy, the technology.
Yeah. And where's it going to be in 10 years?
Yeah.
Just like everything else. I mean, we were talking earlier about where things were 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Just look at all the changes that have happened from 10 years ago to now. What is it going to be?
Well, I think AI technology with machining, you know, if you can design that part on a computer, you know, right now you still have to write the programming and the paths and everything for the CNC machine, but you're going to be able to show a CNC machine a design on the computer, and it's not going to take it long. Somebody's probably already doing it, but that machine is going to be able to tell you the most efficient way to make that part, and with what cutters, what materials are running. Okay, well, these cutters, these speeds, these feeds, like the AI technology stuff I can see in machining where, you know, there's still a lot of human involvement in like, well, what coating should we have on this bit? Are we going to use a 4-flute end mill or a 2-flute or an up cut or a down cut, or, you know, and how should we run the pass on this to be the most efficient? And I swear with the AI technologies, it's going to take a ton of that out, which is actually kind of scary. Like, will people be able to program these machines in 20 years? Yeah. Or is it being done automatic? I mean, you talk about, you know, cutting out computer chips on Mylar and etching them and doing everything by hand. I would imagine most 25-year-old kids coming out of school today doing your job can't do that.
They're teaching it now in school.
Are they teaching it?
They're
the old hand way?
Oh no, they wouldn't.
I'm talking like, could a young kid coming out of college today have the knowledge to do like the hand kind of work that you used to have to do?
No, I wouldn't think so.
No,
they're saving on paper, not having to do drawings by hand.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I doubt it. But
what do you see with kids coming out of college that you guys hire? Like, are you seeing, really talented kids that you learned from, or you like, how has it been for you to keep up with the technologies as you get older in the industry and with technology changing so fast?
It's a little bit difficult just because kind of set in your ways for one, and you don't want some young punk telling you how to do stuff.
Right.
But you have to be open to it and be able to listen to things that they're being taught now that you didn't know back then, or the AI being introduced into it.
Yeah.
And show them how you have been doing it, and let them show you how it's being done now, and hopefully bring you up to that speed.
Right.
And them be able to absorb all of the learning pain that you had gone through to that point.
Right.
To improve themselves for the next generation that's going to be doing this.
And you guys are making chips?
The computer chips. So it's literally it's in your phone right now.
Yeah.
It's where all of your pictures are stored, all of your downloaded podcasts. It's the memory that's inside of your phone or computer.
So what are you seeing with, the chip technology, especially since COVID? It's been a ton of that stuff in the news where we can't, you're getting pickups and your heated seats don't work yet because there's no chips. And people were buying snowmobiles, and literally the snowmobiles wouldn't turn on until, okay, we're going to deliver the snowmobile, and then as soon as we get these certain chips, we'll get them to you and you can use your snowmobile. Yeah. And I know they're building like chip manufacturing plants down around Austin and stuff like that. What's the talk about, like, even like national security wise? There's a ton of talk of like, well, if we're dependent on Taiwan for chips and China decides to take it over one night.
Exactly.
What are the concerns? What's talked about in your industry?
The current big thing that's in is the whole AI processing. How quickly it needs to adapt from what is input into it to what it's putting out, and being able to process that from having a singular input and going out to the internet and scouring 10 million websites to find this information and bring it back to you in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And that is the big push for getting those chips built, manufactured, and out to server farms or out to Google or to the Facebooks or whatever is building these great big memory.
So it's the processing speed.
Correct.
Really?
Yeah.
So the AI is just a little way more taxing on the system?
Yes. It's just processing literally 1 million times more information from what you're asking of it, and it going out, finding that information and bringing it back to you.
So how the hell do you, as Donnie Drake the bow hunter, figure out how the hell to do that?
I don't. I know how to. Everybody asks me what I do at work, and I say that I try to do as little as possible.
I wouldn't say that in public.
But no, and that's where your new college grads and the people that they're looking to bring into the companies now that are kind of on the forefront of all this to take it to that next generation. Because what it is now, this has been in development. I mean, been working on this since 5 years ago.
Really?
And so it's just now out, and it's getting pushed to market. And what we're working on now is 5 years into the future.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and the things that we're testing, my role is to provide validation and functionality of these chips that are packaged, and doing all kinds of thermal testing on them, running them at minus 50 C for 3 months, and then running it at 120 C
really
for 3 months, or running it for 6 hours at minus 50.
Yeah.
And running it, just doing these heat, cool
pressure
cycles.
test, stress test type stuff.
And I mean, some of the stuff we're doing is we're doing cryogenic testing.
Yep.
That's minus 230 C.
Yep.
So it's literal. It's for future space. You know, is this
right
going to be able to handle the pressures of going and being on a rover on Mars?
Right.
And, you know, that technology, these chips were involved in that stuff already. So it's scary. I mean, I think somebody put it in kind of his thoughts of it a couple of days ago was, I mean, Terminator came out when we were young.
Right.
But literally 20 years from now, I mean, that could be realistic.
Yeah.
That AI will be able to do some of these things, and
if it has the actual ability to learn.
Exactly.
And develop itself and adapt.
And not learn compassion.
Yeah.
And that's...
Well, it won't care. I mean,
exactly.
it's a machine. It won't have compassion.
Yeah. And then that's one of the things that is conflicting about the internet. So you want to find out anything, you go to the internet and you do a search. What is the best screwdriver?
Yeah.
And it may weed it down, but this is the best screwdriver and that's the best screwdriver.
Yeah.
Same as our politics.
Mm-hmm.
The red is the best, blue is the best.
Right.
Anything on the internet that you find positive, you will be able to equally find the negative.
Right.
And so if AI is learning that, how is it being deciphered as to what is actually right or what is wrong?
It's interesting. I've tested AI even just with a couple of things about our company just to see what it says, right? Like revenue or employees or some things that are facts that I know and what it says. And then it's interesting, like I've even played around with like trying to teach it, which I mean, obviously, you know, I don't think you can, but like, well, actually, AI, did you know that's not correct? I own Montana Knife Company, and this is the correct whatever, you know, just playing with it. And it's interesting because it'll come back and say, I was unaware of that. Thank you for telling me. We will basically take that into consideration next time. And it's like, well, I don't know if that's just an auto response or like, is the damn thing actually listening?
Did that get stored in a computer somewhere now?
Right. And it's like, well, how often, like if you told it that each day for a week, would 2 weeks from now you ask it that question, would it get it right? You know, because where is it? To your point, where is it getting its data? And it has to learn. It does have to evolve.
And then, literally, somebody else is saying that about Knife Company C and saying that is false. This is the
right. Yeah, somebody else could be going, "Oh, Montana Knife Company. Did you know?" They support Hillary Clinton, and they supplied the knife to her to whack the Boeing whistleblower.
Exactly, and that's
it's like,
that's what scares me about the internet and AI.
Yeah, who's feeding it information?
And I want help on, you know, selecting a product or how am I to fix this? And here's one way, here's another way, and then here's another way that is 100% opposite.
Well, the other part of the internet too, and I don't know how AI deciphers this, but let's face it, anytime you Google, you know, what's the best broadheads? What's the best knife? What's the best bow?
Yeah.
Most of the first responses you see, and actually several pages maybe deep on the internet, are paid. So it's either a paid sponsored ad or it's a paid deal with a magazine. You know, I've learned that there's like this, because I used to just read, you know, whatever magazine, you know, you could say Field and Stream or Outdoor Life or whatever the magazine is. And I always just thought when you Googled something and you read an article in those magazines that it was just straight up like their best opinion of whatever. And then you realize like, oh, there's ways to buy ad placement, and depending on how much money you write some of these different places checks for, you're now deemed the best broadhead or whatever. And so, but how does AI decipher? And this is just with stuff that really is kind of inconsequential, like broadheads and knives. But like, what if it's actual highly critical, sensitive information?
Yeah, literally, like, okay, AI, who should I vote for?
Right.
And you're going to get 50% say over here,
right?
50% say over there. So it's
and it is so much about how you frame the questions too, because you can lead AI too in the direction that you already are leaning.
Yes.
So you can say like I really like Donald Trump. Tell me reasons why I should vote for Donald Trump next year. Right. Well, it's going to give you all positive stuff on that.
Correct.
But in the same sense, you can say negative stuff about Donald Trump and tell me why I shouldn't vote for him, and it'll give you a ton of reasons why you shouldn't vote for him. It's just super interesting how it's, I don't know. And like you say, the learning thing, I mean, you hear Rogan talk about it all the time, how it freaks him out about how, at what point are these computers learning from each other without human input?
Yeah.
And what those abilities may be, Terminator style, and frankly, the military's obviously experimenting more and more with unmanned. I mean, obviously there's a ton of already unmanned military weapons, and drones and everything else. And like, at what point does some of this technology go rogue?
Yeah, or get hacked.
Right. I mean, obviously China's probably the foremost threat on that side of it.
Yeah.
They say China and Russia, but I would definitely be worried about China for sure. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, and it's interesting because you're sure there's stuff you can't talk about, but you're also on the forefront. And I mean, it's a tiny part of it, but it's a very important part. Obviously, the processing with these chips, but like you're seeing and hearing in meetings, things and desires that they're looking to try to do in 5 and 7 years, when we're all just discovering stuff you've been already working on for 5 and 7 years.
Exactly, and that's the biggest threat to the semiconductor industry is proprietary information and confidentiality, and 24/7 there's somebody trying to hack and take that information.
Yeah.
We had people that, that's part of the entire thing with the China and the semiconductors, is they were literally people that were working with my company, and they got hired by these Chinese companies and were providing information, and it all came out in courts and stuff like that. And I don't know what the final results were, but that's one reason. And I don't necessarily agree with, I probably shouldn't say, that the whole CHIPS Act that is, upwards of $50 billion to keep that manufacturing of the semiconductors in the United States. But the flip side of it is most of the companies that are in the United States also have a huge portion of their company is overseas in these other foreign countries. It's not actually 100%
right.
staying here in the United States.
Right.
They may use the money for stuff here in the United States, but it's money that they saved that they can now spend that money elsewhere.
Yeah.
To have, less overhead and having things built and produced mass quantities versus what it would cost for them to do it here. And you see that. I mean, that's
there's no doubt. I mean, if you're going to make chips 100% in the U.S., they're going to cost more.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a reason our knives aren't the cheapest knife on the market. It just can't be. So that will be interesting how how that plays, but it always seems like those big companies also know how to game the system and get around some of that stuff.
Yeah. But it's a future, and I hope that younger generation is properly ready for it. And
yeah,
I'm scared for kids coming up right now.
Oh yeah,
it's it's where Hank's at.
Yeah,
he's got a vast world ahead of him, and if he doesn't have his head on his shoulders,
right,
it could easily go a different direction.
He's pretty much just worried about bow hunting.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Bow hunting and basketball. That's pretty much all he's got a girlfriend now, so that's probably on his mind as well. But luckily she lives in another town, so he can't think about it too much. But it's scary. I will say, when I see you going off the grid, I'm going to take that as a clue. I'm like, I don't know what Donnie knows, but I think he knows enough to know that if he's going off the grid, I'm going to go off the grid too and start hiding. When you get the rumor, maybe, I don't know, tweet me like a I don't know, Terminator emoji or something. So, give me some clue when you hear that Terminator's about to pop off in America.
Follow the rainbow.
Yeah, it's why I keep an old 1992 Jeep around, because the government can't shut it off and AI can't take it over.
Exactly. That's why I still have my Jeepster. It runs on propane and there's zero electronics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty wild. With your hunting career, tell me about, like, what's probably your most memorable, like your favorite hunt, if you never hunted again and you were looking back today, what's your most memorable hunt you've been on?
It won't be, I can't quantify it to one singular hunt, but it is one hunt multiple times. And we do our youth hunt with Elk 101 every year, where we take a child that has a life-threatening disease or illness out, and they get a week of elk camp, and they get to forget about anything that they've been through, and they're just a regular kid, regular dude, regular girl at elk camp.
Yeah.
And it is the most rewarding thing that I do in my life. And if I was told that I can never hunt again, but I could take these kids out still, I'd do that 100%.
I was going to ask you about these. How did that come about? How did how long have you been doing these?
I think I've been doing it since 2015, maybe.
Really?
And a group of firemen and police, and there's a organization called Hunt of a Lifetime. It's a nationwide program. The founder of it, her son was granted a Make-A-Wish, and he didn't want to go to Disneyland or Disney World.
Right.
And his wish was to go on a hunt. And there was not an organization that did that.
Oh.
So she founded it and started it, and it grew from there. And they take those kind of children out every year that don't want to go to Disneyland. The hunting is their passion.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of kids out there that would rather go hunting than go to Disneyland or Disney World.
Yeah.
And we branched off from that a few years ago with just some local guys out of Idaho, and kind of wanted to keep it all in Idaho. And even though it's branched out now, and they're doing some hunts in Colorado and Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
But it's literally, if a kid wants to do it, they can go to the website, or the parents, or a friend of the family, or a kid.
Yeah.
Go out, put their name in, and give the information, and try and bring it make it a possibility for them.
What's the name of it?
So it's called Outfitters for Hope.
Okay.
And they're Outfitters for Hope. I don't know if it's .org or .net, but
yeah. What do you guys set up like wall tents? Or are you staying in cabins? Like when you say hunting camp for these kids, what's that look like?
So it's all over the counter. So the state of Idaho, we're kind of geared toward the elk hunts. So we pretty much only do an elk hunt. There's another group, multiple other groups of guys that are doing deer hunts, antelope hunts, bear hunts, turkey hunts throughout the year. But we have one child and good for this elk hunt. So we take them. We don't have camp set up. They either fly into Boise and we head out from there, or they're from Boise and meet us in Boise, drive out to the mountains, camp on public ground, set our base camp up with wall tents. They will stay in a wall tent with cots and their sleeping bags, and we have heaters and any kind of accommodations that that particular youth will need.
Yeah.
And they get, sometimes it's the dad and the child. Sometimes it's the mom and the child. Last year we had the dad, a brother, and the child. And there's 4 or 5 of us guys that are elk hunting fanatics or just hunting fanatics. And we literally just take them out, try and find elk, show them elk. None of these kids have ever heard an elk bugle in the wild before, possibly have seen them. But it just being able to be part of that and watch them experience that, and you reflect back on your first experience of it.
Right.
And you can just see the thoughts going through their heads and the imagination in their eyes as to what is this animal going to look like? Is it going to come after us? Is it
right?
Where is it going to go? What do I do? And it's just extremely rewarding to be part of that. And one of the biggest things that I get out of it and I see out of it and that I want to impart into my life and my own family life is these families, the father and son or daughter, or mother, son and daughter, they have had a different life than 90% of population.
Right.
They have lived with life and death situations for months, years together.
Right.
And, a 10-year-old child that knows as much or more than you about
struggle,
death,
yep,
stuff that literally no 10, 12-year-old child should know anything about. They know, if I do this, I could die.
Right.
And just there's a 100% different bond between that parent and child than you see in everybody else that you may know. There's just, it's a much deeper love that literally I am getting as much out of it as that child is by it's filling me back up.
Sure.
And that's, the same for everybody at camp. It's, you walk away from it. We typically do it at the end of our regular archery seasons, and we're downtrodden, empty tanks. And we go and do these hunts, and you're just filled back up with life. It's good to see, and it gives you a different perspective on. I can say, "Oh, woe is me because of this," but
right.
Hey,
you don't have any actual problems. Yeah,
you got it a lot better off than a lot of people out there.
Yeah, for sure. I remember specifically, I was driving through Texas last year, and you called me, and you were with actually a couple of those boys.
Yep.
or the one boy, and then that was sick, and then his brother.
Yep.
And his dad, I think, was with you too.
Yep.
And it's really cool, that you gave me the opportunity to talk to him. You guys had a couple of our knives there, and it just, you could hear the excitement and the pride in your voice of talking about them and what you guys were doing and whatnot, and then the excitement of those kids, and that young boy that had so much struggle going on, but he was just as happy as could be.
Oh yeah,
about hunting and
getting what he was doing and where he was going.
Yeah,
and then I called you after the fact and let him tell you that I shot this elk and sent you pictures. And
no, it actually had me choked up because I can't even, I think of the pride I have when I've been with my kids and they're successful. But that's just typical father, dad, daughter, son pride and excitement. But it can't have the meaning that it has for a kid that maybe didn't think they were ever going to get that opportunity or live long enough, or, and the amount of struggle they've gone through. And so to hear that a level of excitement in that kid's voice, knowing how much pain and struggle they've had, for you guys to be given that to those kids is, like you say, I can see why it trumps all of your own personal hunts you've been on. It's really, really cool. You guys have some more lined up this year. Do you know who you're taking yet? Or
we typically don't even know until maybe July.
Really?
Yeah. And some of these kids, my very first one, her name was Caitlin, and I think that she got clearance to go like 2-3 weeks before her hunt.
Really?
And she came out, where is she from? Michigan, and never been out here.
Yeah.
Her and her dad loved it so much, and literally a couple years later, she was going to college at Boise State University.
That's cool.
So, and she's one of the ones that she lived for a few more years and made the most of her life. She was doing cancer research, but she eventually, she had remission a few times, and we lost her, but her goal was to make an impact in the world.
Yeah.
And she did. She changed lives, and all of these kids changed lives. And a lot of times they don't realize it as it's happening.
Right.
But, and that's one of the things about the videos. We're not putting the videos out to make money on or anything like that.
Right.
It's to document this and share it. And when this family goes back and they see their video and they share it with people that they were going through chemotherapy with, and it gets shared around, and it plants seeds. And a couple of years later, I heard about you through Anthony's hunt or through Caitlin's hunt, and this is the nurse that wound up seeing it, and she's like, all this kid's talking about is going hunting. Yeah. And I heard about this place that does these hunts, and she contacts and says, I got this kid that I think that, and puts us in touch with them, so that, or not Corey and I, but the organization, the Outfitters for Hope.
Sure.
And they do all the vetting and all of the bringing it in and things.
Yeah.
Bringing the.
Are you public land hunting with them, or
it's
mostly private?
Public land. So state of Idaho has a deal for a nonprofit companies or nonprofit entities. They issue, I believe it is 5 for military, disabled, or veteran hunts, and 5 for children with life-threatening illnesses.
So you might get to hunt a little bit of ground that's maybe a little better odds than like the typical.
So with the state of Idaho, we just have to tell them where we want to go hunting.
Okay.
And pretty much it's a governor's tag choice.
Yeah.
So we can pretty much go anywhere. And
that's great. Well, that's how it should be. Cause I mean, obviously public land hunting, just regular public land hunting is the odds and the success rate for a able-bodied person are
correct,
really low. So to get some kid like that out there, it's good that the state lets you guys give them some better odds.
Well, and literally none of it would be possible without the Idaho Fish and Game, or every state kind of has something like this in place. But without that tag, it wouldn't happen.
Right.
And I mean, there may be opportunities where there's more than just 5 organizations that are putting in for these tags. There could be a year that we don't get one, and we may have to go out and, purchase a landowner tag. And
sure.
And if it's a landowner tag, we can definitely make a hunting camp feel like it's a public land hunt.
Right.
And some of the kids, it may not be accessible to be able to take them out on a area that they're going to have to either hike to. Or,
yeah, I mean, I think I remember was it a couple of years ago, you had a kid in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to get, and you got her an elk, right? Or him? I'm trying to remember.
His name was Nico.
Okay.
And he had cerebral palsy.
Okay.
And so literally he had his spine just did not develop. And so he had no use of anything from above his hips down. And he weighed 75, 80 pounds. But in his head, he could do anything.
Really?
He was 16, 17 years old, I believe, and absolutely loved his hunt and was 100% one of the guys. If he was sitting just behind a microphone and you couldn't see him, you would absolutely not know that there was anything wrong with him.
Yeah.
He was born that way. He had no idea that he was different. That's what he's been his entire life.
Right.
And just that's one of the things I'm talking about is the things that they've been through is on a 100% different level than me.
Right.
And they've had a different life, whether it's been their whole life or, 6 months ago they were going through chemo.
Right.
So,
what's been your, what about with you and Corey's hunts? Do you have a favorite video or film that either you filmed of him or he filmed of you? You guys have a pretty close relationship. Is there a hunt that you two went on that is most memorable?
Most memorable that is semi-bad memories for me, but it was pretty much the biggest hunt that we ever done. We went to Alaska a couple of years ago, and we're hunting Roosevelt elk on an island. And we're successful on day one. Corey shot an elk. We both had tags, and I started not feeling good. And kind of got sick. Weather came in, and it dumped rain for the next 4 days. And I literally could not get out of my tent or move.
Yeah.
And I think it was around 7 miles from where our tents were set up back to where we killed the elk. And it was all we could do just to make it back with no meat.
Yeah.
To change locations to be able to pack the meat up, because we did not want to pack it to where we had our base camp set up. We wanted to pack it down to the lake that we had got dropped off at.
Yeah.
And I told Corey that I'm sorry, but I can't go.
Yeah.
And him and the cameraman went back, packed all the meat, took 3 days. During that 4 days, it rained 11 inches of rain. So
holy moly.
Nonstop downpour with 40, 50 mile an hour winds. And I was laying in my tent thinking I'm literally going to die.
Yeah.
I
Did you have a fever and like what kind of symptoms? What was it?
Extreme fever, chills, body ache. My back was hurting. I was throwing up. I had diarrhea. On the last day, Corey and cameraman John had got the meat down to the lake, and they were heading back up the mountain and back around to where we had camp. I started peeing blood for about 4 hours, and I passed 3 kidney stones.
Oh.
So after that, after I had passed them, I started feeling a lot better.
Oh, really?
And the storm had a little bit of a break for a couple of hours. We were able to in-reach message the pilot and say, we need to get out of here. And he said, storm's coming. If I can't get there, if I need to pick you up like in the next 40 minutes. And if I don't, it's going to be 7 to 10 days with the storm that's coming in before we can get back in there. Well, we were able to make it. We did everything, packed our entire camp that we took 2 trips in to get it up to the top of the mountain, back down to the lake, flew out of there, and it was risky going back. He had to totally change his course to go back to the mainland. To get us back to the mainland, he had to take a different route because the storm was already coming in. And turns out that was the beginning of September, and I think it was probably September 5th or 6th. Every day they were not able to fly back in September to take anybody else out hunting on that island.
The entire month?
Correct. So
holy shit.
It rained the rest of the time, so we may have had to stay there much longer, but
yeah,
it was just.
Did you have to go into the hospital at that point, or were you kind of on the mend at that?
I was kind of on the mend. I went back in, or when I got back home to Boise the next day, we changed our flights, got back. I went to the urologist, told him what I had going on, and I had a major infection on both sides. Yeah. And took antibiotics, and it healed up from there. And yeah, we were back out on another elk hunt.
Well, that's not the enjoyable elk hunt I was thinking you might tell us about.
It's definitely memorable.
Definitely memorable.
I mean, it's an experience because it was somewhere, it's a destination. Yeah. And nowhere like anywhere that we've been before. And, we're flying in, getting dropped off on a lake. And, yeah, that's probably the top one of don't say that word, the hunts that we've done together. Yeah. Yeah. And then all of Corey's kids, taken them out and been with them on their elk hunts, and that's been extremely rewarding as well.
So you guys also, you raised some horses, right?
Yes, my wife is, I can say this because I think anybody that knows a barrel racer knows that they're batshit crazy. And if you don't say that, they're kind of offended because I'm a barrel racer, so that just signifies that you know that I'm batshit crazy.
Yeah, good looking and crazy.
Yeah. So, so my wife's a barrel racer. She's in the ag world, does that for work, but weekends and during the week, it's about horses. So we have 2 horses, and we're boarding another one at the house. And
yeah, I remember here like a year ago or so, you had a brand new baby colt that just, I think, showed up. We were at one of the shows. I can't remember where we were at. We were together, and it just had a brand new colt. Yep. Yeah.
I think we were down in Texas at the Black Rifle event.
Were we? Because you were excited to get home and see the baby. Yep. Yeah, it's cool having the animals around for sure.
Got another pregnant mare now. She just got confirmation about a week ago. So
yeah, it's exciting. Yeah. What events do you think you'll go to this year?
I'll definitely be at the Big Sky TAC event. That's where the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation World Bugling Contest is also.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the Elk Foundation's kind of partnered with on that.
Yep.
And then head down for the event in Utah.
Sure. TAC.
Yep.
Yep. Do you have any hunts lined up yet that you're planning for this fall?
Still waiting on some draws, and then another one that won't talk about until after season to see if we make it.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, Corey came up with a pretty challenging plan for this year. So
really?
It'll be.
Well, let's not get kidney stones in the middle of it. And you'll be all right.
That'll be, I think, the least of the worries.
This sounds ominous.
Maybe I'll wish I had kidney stones.
Yeah, it sounds pretty ominous. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming and doing this. You're absolutely one of my favorite people in the industry, and it's cool having you here.
Well, thank you. And the industry's a better place with you in it now.
Well, I appreciate that.
And it's amazing to see what it's become, whether you intended it to be or not. It is, and you're up there at the helm leading it, and you're leading it in a good direction.
Well, I appreciate that. It was I couldn't have imagined all of this when I met you that day.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just hoping to survive.
Yeah.
and make some kind of a living and build something eventually. So we've been fortunate, but I mean, it's really been the thanks to, I mean, there's 100 people like you I could name.
Yeah.
And I would leave people out. So the support of this industry and the support of us has been, probably the biggest reason we've succeeded. So it's, I'm humbled and honored to be a part of it. It's a dream come true. I mean, the people and our customers and people within the industry are basically allowing me to do this for a living. So
yeah,
pretty happy with that.
And
feel fortunate.
I will talk about something. You talk about it a lot, but you don't talk about it very often. And one day she will be on this podcast to give her version of things. But I know that you aren't where you are. From our first day together,
Yep.
there is a nucleus that your world revolves around.
Yep.
And that was evident from the very first time I met you.
Yeah.
And it's still evident currently.
Yeah.
And Jess, yes, I'm talking about you.
Yeah.
And I know that, she's a huge part of it. And
Yep.
I know that she has to keep you in line, and that she is as a bigger reason behind this as you are. And you welcome that and you invite that from her.
Oh yeah.
To challenge her as much as you're challenged.
Yeah, no, she, I mean, frankly, she's the reason, cause it was an idea forever until she came along and kind of gave me the confidence to do it, and then, there was never like a doubt, so yeah, she's been, and she will be on here shortly. We've talked about it, her coming on pretty soon. It's going to be fun to interview her, but yeah, no, she's the reason. And it's been cool to watch her grow, frankly, as an employee of the company. It's interesting, 'cause like we own it, along with Brandon, but she's also had to really learn how to lead and how to, she was a school teacher, but she's worked a lot like with Andrew here on, she went from doing fulfillment and doing customer service and all that stuff to then it got so busy to where it was basically breaking her. And then she got some help, and now all of a sudden she's more in a position of leadership and training. And, I say this all the time too. Like I was never a CEO or a president of any company. So like there's been this learning curve that's been steep, not just on like the knife part, but on how to actually lead and manage people. And, fortunately we've brought, good people on that like Andrew and, that have been in a situation like that and can kind of help teach us as we go along and learn from our mistakes too. But yeah, Jess is, she's really the the secret ingredient to all of it.
Yep,
You know,
I agree. And
between her and then Brandon, Brandon,
100%.
You know, had I not, it's just interesting how it works. Had I not been invited by Neil Kemamore to Winter Strong, and had I not met Bert and, those people there, and then just through a random, like, oh, I know a camera guy, like, his name's Brandon, and meeting him and, recognizing his strengths and, his abilities. And it's just interesting that's why I say networking is such a key part of really any business, because it's not just about sales. A lot of times it's about just finding the right business partner or the right employee or, the right connection to a supplier. Yep. There's just so much more to it. And, so that's where I'm super fortunate. I could go through and name tons of people in our small company that are all instrumental in making this thing what it is, So.
Yep. I can see that you've sprouted new branches that are not attached, and you got some shoots that are growing up off of the main tree. So.
Yeah. No, it's very, very cool. So, and like having Jessica Byers here now,
Exactly.
I met her that day on the hill with you, and, she was sweet and adorable and awesome. Yeah. And, 4 years later, now she's a part of the team. And I told her the other day, I knew she was an awesome person. I knew that, you're around each other at shows and stuff. And, but until you hire someone, you get them in, you don't really know how hard they work or what their work ethic's like. What are they capable of? Like, I knew she was awesome and a great person. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're the right fit or the right person for a specific job. And, she's ended up being better than I could have even imagined, scale of 1 to 10, she's a 20, so just her in just a couple months of being here. But it's really, really cool to me when I come out of this office and I see her there, because I do think back to that day on the mountain a lot. Like that morning that I met you was the day Brandon launched our website.
Yep.
So just kind of cool how it's all worked out.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. It's been a good road, but
yeah,
I think there's a freeway down it.
A lot more left. Yeah,
yep.
That's for sure. I think we're off the dirt road and now we're on a 2-lane.
Exactly.
And we'll just keep paving. All right, man. Well, thanks. Where can people find you and follow you and watch your videos and all that?
So the Elk 101 on YouTube, and then there's Elk 101 on Instagram, Facebook, and my handle on Instagram is Eat, Sleep, Hunt Elk. So
awesome.
All right.
Look for the guy in the mohawk with the mohawk. You going to do another mohawk this summer?
No, I grew out of it.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. I loved that. Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, thank you. Appreciate you.